What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Human Proof broadcast. I'm here today with a very special person. His name is Ace Chapman from acechapman.com. I could I'm going to tell you a little bit about him before he jumps in here, but from what I know of him, he's an entrepreneur to the heart, and he has bought and sold hundreds of businesses at this point. And he's working with HPD too, but we'll dive into that a little bit at the further on in the show. But Ace, welcome.
Yeah, great to be here, man. It's cool to be on. When Dom asked if I was interested, I was like, yeah, of course. I love what you guys are up to. So thanks for having me.
Nice, cool. So right now you are in Colombia.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about maybe what you're doing over there, and then we'll dive into a little bit about your background. So why don't we take it back to the current day, and then we'll take it back to kind of where everything started from your
Yeah.
perspective.
So yeah, I'm based in Medellin right now, and have been here a lot of 2018. But then in the last month, have gotten a place and all that, which has been a lot of fun. The interesting thing is I came here looking at a deal and doing due diligence on a deal in May and fell in love with the place. So I'm glad we actually didn't end up doing that deal, but I've discovered Medellin in the process.
Cool, cool. So when did this spark for, let's say, entrepreneurship? When did that start in your life?
Yeah, so man, it really started when I was 5 years old. My mom loves to tell the story of me being five, her giving me money to go to school and pay for my pictures back in the day. And so I went to school, paid for the pictures, and this is when it just took a long time to get pictures developed. So it may have been 3 months left after we took the pictures that we actually got the pictures back. And I just remembered that, okay, these things are worth like $20, which is an outrageous amount of money for a 5-year-old. And in a time when you could buy what we call penny candy, you're talking about a lot of penny candy, like 2,000 pieces. So it's just a lot of money. So I carefully take the photos home and give them to my mom. And then a few days later, we go to church and I see her cutting up the picture, to take them apart and giving them to people and all that. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, are you charging money for those pictures? We paid $20 for them. And eventually convinced her that I wanted to start charging for the pictures after crying and pitching a fit that she was just throwing away money like that. I knew we didn't have money to be thrown away. So that was my first little business. It was selling pictures of myself when I was a 5-year-old kid. And I like to say, unfortunately, I'm not as cute today as I was when I was five. So I had to kind of up my business game. I can't sell pictures of myself anymore.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I guess that the cuteness runs out, and then you have to start,
Doing
you
some real
know,
work.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Okay, so that was quite a while ago. Let's talk about buying your first business then, or
Yeah.
maybe not even that. So before buying your business, did you have a business that you started before buying businesses?
I had little things. So obviously, like I said, I had the entrepreneurial spirit. So I, sold things when I was in high school. I just carried that all the way through. But the first real business that I owned, I actually bought when I was a freshman in college. So I was using the stock market simulator while I was in school, and it was always crashing, always having issues. So after my freshman year, I reached out to them and said that, I wanted to intern for them because I thought it was a really cool business. But, I obviously felt like they needed some help because the thing wasn't being run well. They didn't respond to emails. Everybody was kind of complaining on the platform. So I'm like, all right, maybe I can go and intern for these guys. So they wrote back to me and basically said, well, we don't want to intern because we want to get rid of this business. So if you just find somebody that wants to buy the business, then you could intern for them. And I just had never thought of buying a business. Like most people, it's just not a part of our vocabulary or our thought process because we don't hear it. When we think about buying a house, we know people that have bought houses. Even if we haven't, we've seen commercials about mortgages. So we even understand a little bit about how it works. But when it comes to buying a business, like there's just no conversations around what that looks like. So when I first kind of started trying to look into it, I just was really more curious than anything. I'm like, oh wow, buying a business. I wonder, what they want to sell it for. I wonder how much money it's making. And I knew I was a broke college kid, with a few $1,000s in the bank I saved from doing some web design the summer before. So the last thing on my mind was that I could actually buy it. But the more I found out about it, generating 60 grand, they only wanted 70 grand for it. I didn't know anything about what a business valuation was, but I had one comparable, and that was the fact that at Colgate University, I was paying $130,000 over the course of 4 years. And I had a scholarship, but that's what people were paying. And I knew people that were graduating and only making 30,000. So I was like, 70,000 for 60 sounds like a decent deal compared to that. So I'm like, man, this is a really great deal. And it's just one of those things, a month will go by. I'm like, hey, it's a business deal for sale. And they're like, yeah. And eventually negotiated a deal where I got them to finance half of it, got a buddy to put up 15,000, and then I had a few thousand. So to make up the difference, I ended up using credit cards, and which is not something that I recommend doing, but it all worked out. So a year later, I'm running the business, it's doubled in size, and I go to my parents and give them the devastating news that no parent wants to hear, that their son, who has a full ride to a top 20 university, is quitting to run this little online business.
Well, I don't think parents are generally too happy about those sorts of things most of the time, right?
Yeah,
You're leaving oh, I mean, you haven't even finished school at that point, so really, who could blame them? I'm sure that if your parents are in if you were in their situation and
exactly.
your kid was doing that, I think it's understandable there. But so this first business was a stock market. Was it a stock market piece of software?
Simulator. It was a stock market game, basically. So it's like you take fake money, you're invested in the stock market, and it simulates basically what the real market does. And some people use it to test out theories. Other people just use it and to kind of play and see how well they can do in the market.
Okay, okay. I mean, to manage that, are you technical yourself? Is it,
No, no. Like I knew a little bit about websites. I had built on Front Page for all you old school folks out there. I used Front Page and ended up developing sites for a few different businesses back in Chattanooga, Tennessee. But it wasn't something it was my natural bent, and it wasn't something I ever studied. So I knew that being a tech guy wasn't what I was interested in, but I love business.
cool, cool. So how did you manage that then yourself? Obviously you are a young kid at this point. You've got yourself a brand new business. What did you do when you bought that business?
So the first thing I had to do is I found somebody on campus that could help me with the development. And that's a great thing about being on a college campus is you've got a lot of people that have talent and you have people that have time. And so I found somebody, a guy named John. He was willing to do work on the site, and it was making money. I remember that feeling of we got everything transferred, and getting used to money being deposited into my account. And I'm looking at my account, I'm like, wait a minute, where'd this money come from? I'm like, oh yeah, it came from the business. This is great. This thing is real. It's working. I didn't get scammed. So I had the money to be able to pay folks. It was very cheap labor, and was able to find some technical folks to make some changes that I wanted to make. But the great thing is the business itself was built really, really well. It was probably a year, once I left school, the main reason I did was that I had investors who wanted to participate in the business, but they were like, we don't want to do that if you're going to be a full-time student. We want somebody that wants to run the business. So that was a full year later before we really did any serious work after raising capital to grow the business and improve the software.
Sorry, what was that last part?
And improve the software.
Gotcha. So I'm sure your style and knowledge of due diligence is much greater than it was at that first point. When you first did that deal, did you have some guidance? You have some guidance to do that due diligence, or was it really more of a, well, I mean, if you're getting investors, I guess maybe they might have some advice, but I'm interested in hearing your take on
Yeah.
first.
So I didn't get any real investors until a year later. So I had a buddy of mine who, he just came, he had some family money and was able to put up the 15,000. But the overall, it was really just two kids, that were doing the deal. And it wasn't until about after my fourth deal. So I ended up, buying a few offline businesses after that. And then I met a guy that bought and sold hospitals. And that was the first time that I met somebody that was in that world of buying and selling businesses. So it's like, it was so exciting. I'm like, okay, I got to spend more time with this guy. And I was really, really fortunate that he was willing to kind of mentor me. But that was the first time that I learned from anybody, because like I said, it just was never a thing. It wasn't I didn't know anybody that I could go to and get help on due diligence, especially on such a small deal.
Sorry, I'm still a little stunned from from your, we'll call it that investor that you met with
Yeah.
mentor about buying and selling hospitals. I've personally
I
never
was,
heard that.
yeah, me either. Me either. And it's really funny because somebody had introduced us, and he's like, I think I know this guy is wealthy. He does what you do. And I meet him, and I'm like, yeah, we do nothing like, I do nothing like flipping hospitals. But, his story was amazing. He experienced a ton. And, same way, like when it comes to this kind of deal maker space, the best way to learn is by taking action. A lot of the books out there, because it's just every scenario is different. You're dealing with so many different factors. You got a seller every seller's in a different financial position. You got businesses. Every business is a little bit different. You've got how you're going to structure the deal. Like I've done hundreds of deals and really haven't structured any two deals the exact same way. So everything takes a little bit of being an artist and creative to put the deal together, as opposed to having this cookie cutter thing of, oh, this is how you go out and start buying and selling businesses.
So in your opinion, what makes a great deal then?
A great deal is one where the risk is limited and the ROI is high. So if I'm always telling people it's really about ROI and then decreasing your risk. I don't really buy businesses, I buy deals. And one of the great lessons that Mike taught me early on is, and I remember the specific conversation, we were talking about a couple of possible deals that I was looking at. And, I would go on and on about how great the business is and my ideas for the business and things I wanted to do. And it's like, yeah, but let's talk about the deal structure. Like the business doesn't matter. And he said, I would take, if I could get a business and, even if getting a price doesn't even matter. Like a lot of people get really focused on, I want to get a really great deal. But when it comes to deal structure, it's so crucial that I could pay $1 billion for a $500 million business. But if that person lets me control the deal structure, and I can, pay that $1 billion over the course of 10% of the income over the course of the next, whatever, 100 years, I now have an amazing deal. So the real key is, it's not so much about price, and not about the business. It's about what does the deal look like. And, that's the difference between having a business that's going to get you an amazing long-term ROI and having something that's going to put you in the hole potentially.
So when you talk about deals, one thing that kind of struck out to me was, like financial structuring, from what you mentioned there. Is there, I guess, is there anything beyond the way that the deal is structured, or is that mostly what you're concentrating on, is the financial structure of it,
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the
So
transaction?
the financial structure of the transaction, and then the financial structure of the business itself as well, once you acquire it.
Could we dig in a little bit deeper into that? What do you mean by financial
Absolutely.
structure of the business?
So once you buy the business, there's so many great examples of people who have applied creative financial engineering to their business in order to turn it into something that's like Amazon. So you take Amazon as an example. The business model that they deploy is really crucial to them being able to make it long term. That what they've done, if you have an e-commerce business and you're a retailer, you sink a ton of money into inventory. And so, we own businesses right now that we make a lot of money in a month, and then we got to turn around, especially if we want to keep growing, and we got to deploy all that money back into inventory, and then, try with the rest to cover marketing, admin, employees, all that. And so it ends up, even though it looks like you're making money, your cash flow is really, really bad. So when we're looking at a deal, in addition to how we structure it on the front end, and the down payment we put and what the earnout looks like, we want to look at the business itself. And so you look at a company like Amazon that, financially is just designed beautifully. What they've convinced people to do is to put their own money into inventory, and then send money to Amazon, and they're just sitting it in Amazon's warehouse. Amazon doesn't have to pay any of that. And then they also convince them that once Amazon sells it, they still get to keep the money for another 30 days before they pay that person out. That's a powerful cash flow model business. And so when we're looking at a business, we want to try to find businesses like that where they have a great financial structure, or realize that, hey, we can improve the financial structure by tweaking some things.
Okay. Okay. I have a few friends that do Amazon FBA, and they've definitely mentioned the high inventory costs. I also actually just finished reading. Well, I'm 99% done reading Shoe Dog, which is the story of Phil Knight, and Nike, and that's exactly the same thing. I think Nike was in the early 70s. We'll call it a $20 million company with almost $0 in the bank. I'm not sure if that was necessarily because of a smart structure. I'm sure that they could probably have done a little bit better, but
Yeah.
they've definitely ended up where they are today. In terms of, I guess, as you mentioned those things, when we're buying businesses, or when we're buying websites and stuff like that, for the Human Proof Designs portfolio, it's kind of the same thing. We'll look at deals. We'll also figure out and see where we can improve them. So, if a site is using some sort of ad platform, then we'll kind of go in there and say, okay, maybe we can put them into a different advertisement platform, or we'll try and switch the affiliate program and just kind of play around with stuff that we know has worked in the past there.
Yeah.
So in terms of like your businesses that you're looking at today, what I guess, what are you looking at mostly?
Yeah. So I'm looking at a lot of SaaS businesses. We're buying a lot of SaaS businesses. They're just great. We just closed on one that I'm really, really excited about, and it's called Trust Expert. So when we look at deals, what we're trying to figure out is, number one, how can we structure it? And then number two, what's the longevity? How can we improve it? And do we have businesses in our portfolio that we can use to leverage that business's growth? So I'm a very big proponent of, instead of trying to grow a business through trying to test things, just buy another business and use that business's assets, whether it's their database, the products that they have, whatever, and then cross promote those two businesses in order to grow. So it's like, it's not just growth through acquisition because it adds to the bottom line, but if you can make, 2 + 2 = 6, that becomes a strategy that you can just deploy over and over and over. And with every asset that we add to the portfolio, now we're at about 41, we are not just increasing the bottom line, we're increasing the resources that the whole network of deals have access to. Where, that those resources include traffic sometimes, maybe it is some intellectual property, maybe it's the fact that we can kind of juice up the SEO between the sites, just all these things that we can now use where we can take those couple businesses and help them grow.
41 businesses is a lot.
Yeah.
And that's how many are in your portfolio?
Yeah.
How does your team look?
So I've got directly working with me 4 folks, and then each business has its own team. So with some of those folks, they'll be managing content. Other businesses, they're really, working and managing the inventory and delivery. We've got an FBA business, so we are a part of that Amazon machine as well, financial machine. But so it kind of goes out from there. So we have a very small team. It really shouldn't even be 4 people. Warren Buffett runs all of their businesses, and his internal team is only about 40. So, and I'm definitely not 10% the size of Berkshire Hathaway. So, probably some efficiencies there that can be improved. But the idea is that each business is kind of running itself, and then we're here to help them and also here to keep managing that business buying machine so that we're out there almost acting as an investment bank. So the thing that every Fortune 500 business has is that they have an internal team and an investment bank that is out there every day looking for deals that could be a good fit. A lot of the reason that Amazon is what it is because they've done 100 acquisitions, and each one is a strategic acquisition. It isn't just, I'm going to buy money and it adds to the bottom line. It's, we're kind of putting these things together here that helps Amazon make more money and the business that they acquire make more money. So that's what we act as for all of the businesses in the portfolio.
Cool. So with the Amazon FBA business that you have there, some people that we work with have Amazon FBA businesses, and then they actually have affiliate sites that support their FBA business by driving traffic to their products. Is that something that, because from the structure and the way that you build your portfolio, is that something that you do on your end? Can we, and if so, can we dive into that and see a little bit more into how you do that, or what you're
so how we do which part?
How you are basically, I guess the question is whether or not you have basically these satellite sites supporting supporting your FBA business.
So yeah, we don't really, no, we don't do that.
Okay. What does, I guess, so in your portfolio there with where you're trying to cross promote and basically, essentially get your competitive edge when you're trying to buy these businesses and kind of ramp them up. Can we talk about can we talk about how that kind of looks a little bit more? I'm trying to dig a little bit deeper into
that. When we're buying the businesses, a lot of time it's a couple things that we want to bring to the table for that seller that allows us to stand out from every other buyer that may be coming to the table. The first thing is that we can show that we've got a lot of experience doing it, and in the market that we're in right now, actually one of the deals that we've got under contract. Currently, it was a business that we looked at, we made an offer, we got outbid, but then somebody else got it under contract, and that person ended up not closing because the average person is exactly what we talked about where I was when, 19 years ago, I was a kid in college. Most people don't know anything about due diligence. And so they get to the closing table and they're like, hey man, what, like, I don't know if this is a good deal or a bad deal. And they end up walking away, getting cold feet, not closing a lot of deals. So that lost the seller 3-4 months. After that, they did have another buyer that came in. That buyer ended up walking away. And so then they came back to us and we got it at a better deal than we did initially because, now they know, all right, I want to deal with a professional. So there are a lot of deals. And I just see, a lot of deals that go on the contract that do not end up closing. Now, when I would do deals as a younger person, I try to negotiate it so that I did have some exclusivity. Now I do exactly the opposite. Especially even if I'm selling a business, one of the worst things that I feel like can happen is that a buyer comes to me first. And I feel like it's the same thing even with the sellers. Like, I want you to experience how terrible it is dealing with most business buyers who have no idea what they're doing. They get on the call, they don't know what questions really to ask. They're just kind of winging it because, for 80% of business buyers are first-time business buyers at any given point. So it gives us a leg up when they've experienced what it's like to deal with a newbie buyer, and so they can appreciate dealing with us. If I'm sitting across the table from a potential buyer for one of my businesses, it's the same thing. I want them to go out and see just how terrible it is when they're going to look at these other businesses whose financials are in shambles. There's all kind of issues around what they're buying. The business isn't really a business because at the end of the day, the person just has a job. There's all of these different things. And so when they come to us and we have SOPs and, I can sit across the table and ask them what their biggest concerns are. That's one of my favorite questions as a seller. I want to know, what are you worried about in this business? And if they say, oh, I'm worried that the manager is going to quit, I can go in our SOP folder and go to employees and show them, in the manager section, what we do if a manager quits, where we advertise, the language we'll use in the advertising, what we look for in the resume, the people that will take over that position while that person is no longer there, and then how to train the new manager so that that's not a concern. Then, I'll say, all right, what are your other concerns? And they may say, well, marketing. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do marketing. I can go to that section and show them, all right, here are all the things that we're doing right now, how it works. Here are the things that we've tried that didn't work for us. Here are things that are on the list that we recommend trying in the future, and here's a strategy around it. Now, when you sit across from a person, they do all that, and then you go to the next person, and they don't even have their financials in order, it becomes a very clear choice. And what I call it is like selling a franchise within the business. There are a lot of people that will pay $100,000 franchise fee before they have any cash flow, anything that's making money. So, and they pay that for all the systems and all the procedures and all the processes that they get as a part of that. And so what we want to do is say, hey, in addition to this business that is making money, we're basically selling you a franchise system, and you're combining those two valuable things together, and it sets you apart from the market. So on both sides, that's how we kind of set ourselves apart from the market and make sure that we're getting the attention of buyers and getting the attention of sellers.
That's a fantastic point about the franchise fees. I've never heard that, but it makes a ton of sense. I mean, that's exactly why you're going to buy the Dairy Queen down the street because it comes with, free delivery to to you guys.
Yeah.
Um, how many transactions have you been involved with now?
A little over 200.
200. Cool. Um, I'd like to do maybe a bit of a role playing situation here. So, the majority of our audience is people who are building affiliate sites, usually, Amazon affiliate content sites. And when they're building that site up, um, they've gotten to a point where their site is making some good money. They don't want to sell it, but they're interested in purchasing another site. So, what kind of ideas would you have for them to pursue that in the best way? So, let's say they're just kind of on this first phase where they've got in their mind that they'd like to purchase another site, another content site, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So I love content deals. We own a lot of content deals. And I think if you, I'm a personally, obviously, a very big fan of just buying. And I think the exciting thing is if you're building and buying, you can find something that's similar to what you're building and do a couple things. Obviously, you can do some cross-linking there to help your site grow. But the other things you're doing is you may cut your learning curve a bit. So being able to learn from that seller, part of all of these agreements should be that you are getting some training for a certain period of time from that seller. And I think it's one of those things that's like really undervalued. For most people, they are like, okay, like it's gonna be my business. I want to do things my way. Like I've got plans. I'm gonna blow it up. The seller's so dumb. They don't realize how to do a business as good as I do because I am so smart. And the truth is, every one of these sellers has made it through some really tough odds. The chances of a business making money are really, really low, especially in today's day and time on the internet. There's so many people starting businesses and so few that are making any money, even when they put entrepreneur in their Instagram profile. So you end up in a situation where you have the opportunity to learn from this seller who made it through against those odds. And you can kind of, again, cut your learning curve so that you are able to build the businesses that you're building, maybe using some of the strategies that they use to grow their business.
In I guess in most financial deals, that's called an earnout, I believe. Is that the same thing that you're talking about then when you talk about shortcutting and getting that advice from the seller, or are you talking about something different?
No, yeah, yeah. So it's called an earnout, and that's something that should be a part of every deal you ever do.
Okay, so you're a big um you're very positive on including an earnout then in the deal.
Definitely, definitely.
What else then should people be looking at? Because let's talk about when they when they're looking at a site and they're the person's got the financials and let's say Google Analytics and stuff like that. Can you maybe share a couple tips in looking at that stuff, or maybe what we should be paying attention to that maybe you've been burned on in the past? I'm assuming after 200 deals, you must have been burned on some things, maybe.
So the
But
thing that is, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, that's it.
Yeah, so the thing that is really interesting is like the stuff that you see, the new stuff that's always popping up, and that you aren't prepared for. We're looking at a deal that was getting a tremendous amount of traffic from online Pinterest. And we don't have a lot of deals. So the first thing that we're trying to do in every deal that we do is we want to have 5 levels of diversification. So, it's like traffic is one level. So we don't want a deal. We don't want too many deals that are just getting traffic from Facebook or getting traffic from Google. We want a lot of different places that the traffic is coming from. So it was really interesting to us that deal was in Pinterest. We had a lot of, because we don't have another deal that was getting that much traffic from Pinterest. The thing, once we really dug in, we realized, well, this is really violating the terms and conditions of the way Pinterest is supposed to work. And everything else in the deal was like really, really great, but you run the risk in a deal like that of Pinterest just kind of pulling things away. The other thing that you've got that when you talk about being burned, the worst burning that I've ever had was on a tanning salon. So I had a group of tanning salons, and I was basically packaging them together and was going to exit them. So I had 5, and then what we did was we just did this massive outreach while I was buying those 2 tanning salons and had them reach back out to us. And I got contacted really late in the game. I'm already in the process of selling. So I get contacted by this one guy. He's like, hey, we really want to sell. I know, you reached out to us a year ago. We weren't interested in, now we are. And, we'd love to have take a look, see if you're interested. So look at the numbers. And I'm basically like, I don't really want to buy it, but I'll give them a low ball offer. If they accept that, then, okay, that's cool. So I tell the guys like, hey, I want to give you an offer. He's like, well, I want you to come and give it to me in person. Let's do dinner. My wife is going to cook for us and da-da-da-da-da. And I was trying to butter me up or what. But I take my partner down on the deal, and we have dinner at this guy's house. And we're sitting there, it's like back in the woods. I'm just like, oh my goodness, where am I going right now? So I end up at this guy's house. It's really nice. Wife is great. Beautiful house. And we're sitting there at the dining room table, having pleasantries, all that. Get to the end of dinner. He's like, all right, so tell me what the offer is. And I tell him the offer. And he just sits there. And I'm like, okay, he's going to play the, just silent, see who breaks the silence first game. So I'm sitting there, he's looking at me, and I look up at him and realize like, oh, he's not playing the silent game. He's like furiously staring at me and just turning redder and redder with anger until he just burst into a bunch of expletives and kicked me and my partner out of his house. He's like, just get out, that is outrageous, never take that, I would never do something idiotic like that, you're crazy, blah, blah, blah. So get in the car, my partner, who hasn't done many deals, is like, yeah, looks like we're not going to get that one. And I'm like, I don't know. I think he's that angry because he really wants to sell and he doesn't like the offer. Otherwise, he just say, whatever. All right, bye. Thank you. Welcome for the free food. So sure enough, 2 weeks later, his wife calls me and sheepishly says, hey, we are interested now, we're willing to take it. Well, at this point, I'm now 2 weeks even further down the line in the deal that I'm already negotiating to sell all of my tanning salons, and it's just kind of complicated. So I tell her, like, actually the offer would be different even than what I gave you then. So he probably is not interested. And she's like, well, just tell me what the offer is and I'll see. So I told her it was even less than what he cursed me out and kicked me out of his house for. And she comes back and she says, of course he wasn't happy, but we're going to take it. I'm like, I really didn't even want the business, but it's like, this is so rock bottom that I'm like, all right, it just is worth it. It's like the assets, or I could just sell the assets and it would be worth it. So we close on the deal, give them the money. I'm kind of leaving and hanging out actually at a lunch meeting. And I get a text that says urgent. The manager of the tanning salon that I just bought is like, you really need to come here. I get there and she's like, you won't believe what a customer just came in and showed me. And the customer come in and showed her this email on her phone, and then she got her to forward it to her. And it basically said that, this guy named Ace just bought the business. he should call himself Ace Hole instead of just Ace because he's an asshole, and he should never use the business again anymore. And so he basically sent an email out to everybody saying not to go. It's going to be terrible service, blah, blah, blah. And that was my learning lesson. And, today, even, it's one of those things that's so important for listeners. Like, I check in with the seller. And I asked them, like, especially if they seem like they're not happy with the deal, or if they were asked, their asking price was way different than what we come up with, whatever the case could be. I asked them and try to make sure with them, are you happy? Like, I don't want to close this deal if you're not happy. And that's worked really, really well. And sometimes when they know that I'm not going to close if they're not happy, then they realize, like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I'm closing this deal because I'm happy. Like, he's not forcing me to do it. It's something that I'm choosing to do. So that's those were a couple cases where it's like, all right, with the Pinterest thing, I don't think a lot of people pay attention to terms and conditions. And then when it comes to negotiating with sellers, it's important that that seller buys in to the offer that you want to give them, because they can ruin the business.
That's an awesome story. Kind of for you. So it sounds like you are really good at negotiating then. You probably do this every day of your career, probably this far.
Yeah. I just do. It's one of those things. It's like, I'm terrible right now at salsa. I'm trying to learn salsa dancing. And, in the US, I'm a pretty good dancer. I can hold my own dancing. And so it's really weird to start trying to do a dance. You're just like, whoa, like my body is just like, what are these movements that you're trying to do? I refuse to do them. It just won't cooperate. Like I can see somebody doing salsa. I'm like, wow, like that's really good. Like I know those movements. I can do each of those movements like individually, but when I put them all together, my body's just like, no, I'm checking out. So it's tough because, it's like, I just have never done it before, but, people that have grew up doing it or have done it for 20 years, it becomes really easy. So at this point, it's not even like a pat on the back. It's like, if after 19 years, I'm not pretty good at it, I've got some issues.
Do you have a framework or anything like that for negotiating? Like, for example, when you are about to step into a negotiation, either as the buyer or as the seller of any business, really, is there anything that's running through your mind? Maybe like some first couple steps that race through there. For the reason why I asked that is simply because another book I haven't finished reading yet is Never Split the Difference. I've only
Great book.
I'm only 25% of there, but I do remember the first rule of slowing things down, and that always comes up for me. So I'm kind of wondering, I'm curious if whenever you step in, do you have a framework? Is there something going on in your mind that you're just always trying to remember?
Yeah, just book wise, I would definitely read that book, and I would read Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. The thing that I like to do is build a relationship. I want that seller and I just to have some strong rapport, whether or not I do the deal. And so it's a little bit of that is from the perspective of, obviously I'm going to get a better deal if there's that rapport. But the bigger thing is that every time I'm doing a deal, it's an opportunity for me to grow my network, regardless of if I close that deal or not. So there have been cases where I've ended up hiring people who sold businesses that I didn't end up buying, but because I was really impressed with them, or partnered with people, or just learned from people, or had questions like, hey, I know you use this to grow this business. What, or maybe we can do it, or maybe we can do something similar. What would you do in the case of owning a business like the one that we have? I've had things where we've done joint ventures between companies. So even if we don't buy the business and that seller likes us and we we wanted to buy it because we had a similar business in our portfolio. Now they'll connect us with the actual buyer and say, hey, you should really work with him. Especially, we actually had this happen specifically where we didn't get the deal. The guy did have a portion of earnout, so he wants the business to succeed, or he's not gonna get all this money. And so he literally connected us with the buyer and said, hey, you should connect with Ace. He has some really great ideas for the business, and you guys maybe could work together. So that's the kind of the one key thing that I go into each deal with. And it's not so much like a trick or anything. It's just like, that's honestly the place that I'm coming from. I want to just learn. Like, I'm going into each call, each meeting, just with a curious mind.
So it's a lot about relationships and things like that. Let's walk through a week in the day, or a week in the life of Ace Chapman, someone who owns 41 businesses, and has a team to support them, but is also looking. I'm thinking you're probably looking to expand that number. Do you have a certain goal that you're trying to reach? Like, what's the week look like, and I guess where are you going with your business?
So right now it looks a lot different. In 2019, we're taking some companies public. So out of the portfolio, we're going to be taking some companies public in August of next year. And so the week is filled with a lot of conference calls. Just got off of almost 3-hour marathon. That's probably why I'm in a little bit of slow motion right now. It's got about a 3.5-hour call where we're going through financials, a lot of accounting going on. We're dealing with auditors. That's a lot of my time right now. And then, the cool thing is a lot of what I do can be done from anywhere. So I spend a lot of time traveling, and that's a lot of fun. So, just got back to Medellin, but, in the past month, I have been in LA, spoken at an event in Denver, spent some time in Miami, saw family in Chattanooga, and then, flew back down to Medellin. Now, the cool thing is in each one of those places, and one of the great things about, just the times that we live in, is that I've got investors or partners or potential deals in all those places. So was able to, it's fun to tie those things in. But yeah, weeks right now have been a lot of conference calls, going through accounting, answering questions on accounting, and all of that stuff, getting our financials and everything ready for review by SEC and FINRA and all of that good stuff for next year.
Okay, cool. So it sounds like you are going public in the United States then. Is this your first deal going public?
Yep. This is the first time taking a company public.
Congrats.
Yeah, it's exciting. I feel like, it's one of those things where you always want to, it's not, necessary for me to do it, but I think, it's just cool to have those challenges and kind of trying new things and growing with what you're up to consistently. So.
We lightly went over the fund, so maybe let's talk about that actually, because I personally actually don't know very much about the fund. So maybe you can tell the audience what it is.
Yeah, so I run a private equity fund that has about 9 deals in it. And it's basically just it's all internet businesses in the fund. So right now there are a ton of offline opportunities. So we're doing some neat things offline, but the internet fund is 100% kind of this neat internet collection of deals. So we raised some capital and started to deploy it. And we're actually taking a couple of companies out of that fund that we're going to take public as well.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you've got investors that are in there, a liquidity event is is every investor's favorite thing.
Exactly. Investors like getting money better than writing checks.
Very cool. So Ace, actually, well, I've just kind of got like two final questions for you here as we wrap up the hour. Um, so we've been working together at HPD. I personally haven't been working with you. That's mostly handled by other members of the team. Um, do you have any, I guess, any words about that? I believe that we are handling a few of your content sites actually with you. I don't know if you are allowed to say anything, but of course, any kind words you have as a partner always helps us for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, it's been great. So you guys are writing content for I think three of our deals. I think or maybe four. So and that's a part of like when you got 41 deals, it's hard to keep up with like specifically what's going on with each one. But yeah, man, it's like anytime you can have really great partners that are responsive to the business you guys have built, the talent that you have and the training that you have, it's just it means that that's whatever for less people that I have to go and hire and train. So I think it's a really big deal to find those partners. It's the only way that we do what we do is to find great partners like you guys to help run these deals and grow them and see where you can fit in. So I'm looking forward to getting some more of these things now that we're partnered with you guys and adding some content. I think y'all are gonna start doing some content even for my personal blog. So yeah, I'm trusting you guys with a lot, man. I think we got like four businesses and one of them is my own blog. So yeah, you guys have been great.
Cool. Well, now you're on the podcast, so we've kind of gone full circle here on that end. So my final question actually is, and you mentioned a little bit about it, but do you have a favorite book or blog to recommend to the audience? I always ask this to people because I think it's timely and everyone has their own opinion of one.
Yeah, man, so many. Reading or just, The Gambler is a really great one. It's about a deal maker who started with nothing, ended up, buying half of Las Vegas and MGM, the actual studio and all of that. I'm a big fan of a book called Ling. It's a Ling. It's about a guy named James Ling. He was an Asian dude in Texas that ended up buying one electrical company and just a small $100,000 deal, and long story short, leveraged that into about $100 million empire, just doing all acquisitions. Just those would be two that kind of come to mind that I really love. And then I've got a video, if you like books, I talk about a few different books in detail, including those on my channel. So you can just search Ace Chapman books, and I give just a lot of recommendations and reviews and all that. So we don't have to go through all of them here.
No, that's pretty cool. We'll try and put that into the show notes here for the episode. Ace, thank you again for coming on. If people want more information on you, is there any way that you'd like to send them so they can kind of reach out to you, I guess?
Yeah. So the best place to go is acechapman.com. I'm pretty active on Instagram, and it's ace.chapman.
Very cool. Thank you again for coming on, Ace.
Great being here. Thanks.
Thanks.